Brenda's the only one we're missing. Let's see if she texts me. Oh, Shannon got it. Okay.
I got it.
There we go. Now I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything either.
Hang on. Brenda's having issues on the phone here. Okay, so Brenda's having a little bit of trouble getting on. Let's see. She's just going to do by phone. So as soon as we get her, we'll get going. Is everybody awake? Got their coffee or tea?
No.
Water?
I'm asleep.
It is a little early, I must say. Have we all gotten used to sleeping in? I have.
Yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, the alarm went off and you should have seen the fish flailing that I was doing, trying to find my phone, like, what is that noise?
Hi, Marie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I can mute myself if we want to. Well, I'm still trying to figure out. No, I don't know how to enter that. I don't see that. Marie, any advice? She says somehow entering it via the phone is not working. Knows what the password is. Type in the numbers that correspond with the letters.
She should be in now.
Ah, there we go.
My apologies.
Okay.
Zoom has now upgraded their, Dr. Grobe and I already had been using a password to protect any session that we did on Zoom. And then in this last week, or 3 or 4, however many, Zoom has added some additional security features, which then prompted me to have to send out another email this morning. And now I literally have to choose to admit each person as they come in, which is brand new to me. So that was the delay for Brenda. All of a sudden it popped up and said, please allow me in. And I'm like, oh, absolutely.
Okay, Brenda, can you say anything? Hello?
I show on my end, she's still connecting.
Okay. Okay. All right, so see if we can't. So how is everybody doing on their at homeness? Are we actually staying home? Are we allowed out depending on your location? Share what you're doing, ladies.
Not paying attention to the government and staying in. Florida seems to want us to get back out, putting kids back in school.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Dang.
Wow, I'm surprised. So are they saying that you guys are past the peak and everything's doing okay there?
Elaine?
I didn't watch the actual news conference yesterday from the governor, who is actually the one who wants to initiate this back to school order. But based on his wisdom, it's not about whether or not we've reached peak, because the truth of that matter is I'm in healthcare and no, we have not. He feels that younger people are not at a disadvantage when it comes to COVID-19 and aren't dying. So it's safe to think that they can go back now.
Interesting logic.
Yeah, a little troubling.
All right, Brenda, can you hear us? I see you're looking logged in. Guess not. Well, here they have said, oh, Brenda can hear. Okay. We can't hear you, but apparently you can hear us. Well, that's good then. So here, it's still supposed to be essential only travel. And so I've been out. I think Marie has been out a few times. Certainly you can go to grocery and such. And-
Well, I do have one client that is a post-operative client. She had surgery, and so I am going in to the office to work on her scars. Other than that, I've been working long distance. But I will say, oh, there's Brenda, that I am, I'm not, it's hard for me to stay home. And it's not that I'm unwilling. I just have found that I need to get out a little bit. And so I'm out walking the dog. I will find excuses to get out. So, but when I'm out, I'm wearing a mask, and I'm generally going from my house to the office and back home. I'm not venturing anymore. My husband actually is the one that's gone to the grocery store and done things like that. So, but I do help another practitioner with billing and insurance. And so that's given me kind of structure and purpose in my day. At
How about-
least a couple of days.
How about you, Shannon? You're in Spokane, so that's my sister, by the way, everybody. So,
Hi. I feel like we're doing pretty good over here. Just from talking to you guys over there, it seems like Spokane has been a little more adherent to some of that. Maybe because we have an older population. Definitely, I've been to the grocery store a couple times, but mostly, for the most part, I'm trying to stay home. I really am. I'm immunocompromised, Mystique, obviously. So you're into that pretty well. I go out for a walk. A lot of people out and about that in that sense. But yeah, every couple of weeks I go to the grocery store, but for the most part, I'm trying to. I feel like actually everyone congregates at Home Depot here, so it's really scary. And the only place that the parking lot is full is Home Depot.
oh, that's
So-
funny.
That's So I'm trying to stay away from there.
So, Marie, you want to just kind of get us started with why we're all here besides saying hi with our morning faces?
Right. Morning faces. Thank you for, so the Florida folks have a little more time to
Oh, yes, that's true.
be prepped. I kind of do feel though, like I'm fresh out of bed. I have some new habits. I would say I'm getting more sleep than I really thought I needed. And I kind of did a self-evaluation going, okay, what don't I like and what do I like about what's going on and what struggles are people having? And Mystique was remarking that the younger folks, I hate to identify them as their era, but from 25 maybe to, or younger, to 35, they're really alone and they're not okay being alone. They have to be entertained, or they're used to having a device, a movie, a something, and they're really struggling. But aren't we all struggling in some way, shape, or form? And so that was kind of how the discussion started, about just checking in with people. And on social media, I check in with my family, or I get texts, or we're all checking in on our people. My cousin said her pants don't fit and she's doing nothing different. She's going to work every day. She's eating the same. And all of a sudden she's got this problem of having her clothes not fit. And she's kind of in that soon to be menopausal, perhaps, age. So we're having physiology and a lot of mental, emotional, as much as we try to keep an even keel. So we thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of check in and see how's it going and what you're liking about this and what you're not liking about it. And are you having struggles, and see if we can help.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Brenda.
Hi. Yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting because in a sick, sad way, it's an opportunity for people to be spending quite a bit of time with themselves and discovering themselves. And for a lot of people, I think that's going to be a bit really uncomfortable, because I don't think nowadays a lot of people actually know how to entertain themselves or be productive on their own.
I agree, Brenda. I've noticed that, and part of it depends on your personality, who you are. If you're a very extrovert versus introvert, are you a self-disciplined person? Are you needing structure and organization versus free flow? There's the difference between being with your family, without your family. Uh, Marie had mentioned the 20 somethings or whatever. I did have a telehealth with a patient, and she was actually in tears. She's early 30s, and she is a very intelligent, self-motivated type of person, but a lot of her life depended on being socially interactive with people, and even doing conference calls with colleagues, because she's working from home, was just not cutting it. And so that aloneness really was hitting her. And we're at enough time frame that we're all actually beginning to start grieving and going through some of these mental emotional processes as well. At first it was kind of this crazy adventure none of us expected or wanted, and then we're like, okay, well, we can buckle up for a few days, weeks, how long is this going to go? And now we're hitting a point where enough of our life, enough of our entire feature of the global world issues is changed. And Marie and I were talking about, what is this going to look like? This is an opportunity for us to sit by ourselves, discover ourselves, see what we like, what we don't like, and how are we going to move forward? What kind of a future are we going to create from this? Because it's going to be different. The positive that I'll just start with, and then you guys can follow through, is one of the first positives I've seen is, one, whole families are going on bike rides. They're keeping their that's a great way to keep your social distance, actually. Whole families are going together somewhere. Whole families are working in their yard or doing something in their house together. I am seeing individuals paying attention to who's in their neighborhood that needs help, that's alone, that might need groceries. Heck, I'm going to the grocery store. Instead of infecting 5 people, let's just have one person who's already go get groceries for the seniors on my street. People are checking on one another. So those are the positives that I'm seeing that are amazing. And those people are not going to abruptly stop that when this, whatever we're told, we're okay and go forth. People are going to want to keep some of that. How do we do that? So I'd like to hear from other people what things you like, what things you're seeing as a positive, either a sign of humanity versus the psychopathy that's out there, or something that you would personally like to keep, something you like about being home. Anybody?
I
Alyssa.
think a few of us are, this is Elisa. I think a few of us are thinking, but sorry, I got on from the phone and not from Zoom. A couple things I like is, although a few friends are buying things online, there's less materialism. Slowing down from having all the entertainment distractions is really telling as far as what matters to us. And it's really nice to do some simpler things like we used to from when I was growing up.
In fact, many people have mentioned that it's back like the 70s, where you did things as families, or it was simpler. It wasn't so many, I got to have this device, that device, latest fashion. It was much more oriented around your daily living rather than everything so external from you. So yeah, you nailed it on that. I've heard that from multiple people. You were going to say something, Marie?
I was going to say I would agree with Elisa that it is really the consumerism, but also I want to call it I have several people that decided how they were going to do their, and I'm going to give it a different term. I call it sequestering because I'm not sick. So I didn't quarantine, even though that was the big word, right? They chose who they were going to sequester with because they knew they were going to be potentially weeks and they didn't want to be alone. And so they chose to go home to be with mom or dad or brother or sister so that they formed back to that kind of community and shared their responsibility and shared their resources. And, you know, it does give us the opportunity. But it also, there is a flip side to it, obviously. There's always that yin and yang, I think, with anything. And that is, it really does kind of show us what don't we like about the situation. For me, it amplifies, if you will, my flaws. How much do I tolerate my spouse or not? And so I quite literally, when we knew this was coming, I had my husband go and pick up the camper and get it out of storage and park it in front of the house. And I'm sitting in my camper in front of my house. And it's on the back of the truck. So it's my portable mobile office, but it's my place where I can get away from everybody else. It's also the place where when I'm done during the day, I can go back in the house and the guys can come out. And if they want to use the other, whatever gaming system, because there's a different system in the camper than in the house, it gave us an option. And I just really felt like this extra, 300 square feet was necessary.
Absolutely. I have a few acres here, and so we can, get out of the house and we're outside and stuff. And I don't know how I would deal with it if that weren't the case. I mean, yeah, it would be a lot more difficult. I'd be climbing the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And having that alone time, that space, has always been a necessary part of my being, so if that wasn't there, it would be totally different.
How about you, Shannon?
Yeah. Did we lose Judy?
I think I feel like people are more aware of other people now for whatever reason. And I'm hoping that will continue. And I think we'll be more compassionate to other people's needs. The person that you may have, walked by and judged at the grocery store, I feel like people aren't going to do that as much as out and about, of judging people, maybe being more compassionate to where people are coming from. I don't know. I just feel like there's hopefully, or maybe it's hopefulness, that there's going to be a shift in how we look at other people, that they may be suffering, where maybe we weren't aware of that before. And then, judging based on what we see. And now I feel like maybe that's gonna taper off a little bit, that people will just initially be more compassionate because maybe everyone's suffering in their own consequences at this point. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful it'll make that shift, being more aware of people suffering. Kind of.
Initially, I'm seeing that for sure. I've seen people do some amazing, generous things. I saw, I don't know that it was local, but I saw a family you know, the whole TP, nobody could find TP thing. And there was a family that was like handing out single rolls to people on a street corner. If they needed toilet paper, we got it. And I just have been seeing things like that, which I think is kind and generous. And it shows to me that that's the real human nature. I've always believed that under any circumstances where we're really tested, most people really show their true colors. And
I've actually seen that in business where a company locally had an overstock of toilet paper, and they said, look, we're going to give this away. We had somebody cancel their order essentially. And so they had people send them an email or a text or whatever, and they delivered it to them.
that's
A business.
nice. I hadn't heard that.
And so it's a family-owned business, and it's done quite well. And so that was something that they could give back. And when they are in need, I see that they posted yesterday that they were in need of something, and the community came back and surrounded them with what they needed to get their employees in order to get their employees, essential employees, back to work. So I like the humanity, and that was kind of after having a discussion, kind of the topic of this was, you know, embracing the humanity that we've been seeing, and also some of the language that we've been choosing.
Lillian, did you want to share a story of anything you've seen positive?
Yes, actually I would. I'm ready to jump on. I'm working from home as many others.
Okay, so
And I actually have a conference call to jump on. We're inundated with meetings, as you can well imagine. However, I would agree with what's been stated. I actually mentioned to Judith this morning that I've noticed in terms of what good has come out of a really bad situation is that people, I'm noticing, are paying attention to the things that they probably should have been doing all along. And that is, I'm watching on the sidewalk through my window at my office, people on the street walking and riding bikes and just doing a lot more exercise and physical things. I've noted that the few times I've been out to the grocery store or anywhere, even in the community, people are kinder, they're gentler, they're more cognizant of you. And I have a sense that people are being much more gentle than they ever have been, and so much more caring. And that's something that I'm hopeful also that we return to in light of all the bad that's been put on us. If that's what we get out of this situation, I'm going to be pretty happy, because I think that we've lost touch with true humanity in the rush of daily life. We now have so much time to really reflect on the things that matter. And I'm hopeful, and I'm actually feeling really elated about that part. So I hope it continues, and I've enjoyed very much listening to you ladies, and I'm wishing you the best. Stay safe, and I hope I can join again in the future when you have one of these conferences. It would be great.
Great. We hope to do more of these. We are talking about doing one at 4:00 today if we have more to talk about. Otherwise,
Awesome.
we'll just do it another day or time. So we will send you definitely a message.
Thank you
love
so
that.
much,
Thank you.
Lillian.
All right. You take
Thank
care.
you. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. So Marie, we were talking about the language that we're using. So like the word we're using, I'd like to know what everybody's word is for staying home mandated by the government. So what word are you using? Share with us. What words?
I was going to say this is Elisa, and
Hi, Elisa.
I like how Marie put it, because since I also volunteer with a governmental agency, I'm used to using their terms, but I hadn't thought of having my own term, because you're right, a quarantine would mean that you are ill. And it would be nice to reframe the situation that we are doing this, because we're doing it by choice versus having governmental agencies driving down the street and, blasting go inside.
Mhm.
So we still have a measure of control in it, but I guess that's just new to me to reframe it. And so I'm still pondering it, and I appreciate that Marie brought that out.
Well, Lisa, one thing I have noticed is that is being repeated via the government agencies is that everybody is considered positive unless proven otherwise. Seriously. So that's why to them the word quarantine makes sense. Now, as a doctor, I might dispute that a bit, but I understand the reasoning for it. But like you said, even if it's illusionary, I want some control over how I perceive this experience. So my word is going to be different than quarantine. Depends on the day. Some days it feels like jail, but other days, I call it a staycation. I can't tell you how happy I am to be at home with my daughter more. I love the slower pace. I love being focused and attentive and conscientious rather than rush. Just a minute, honey. Just a minute, honey. Just a minute, honey. I don't want to change that, frankly. So that's my words. I have two words: jail and staycation.
And I totally agree. I mean, to me, it's a staycation, and I think back to positives for a minute. Like at the beginning, like everything seemed to be the individual me, the hoarding. What do I need? And there has been a shift, and I've seen the shift when you do go to the grocery store and whatnot. A realization that what I do affects so many others, or can affect so many others. So I've seen that positive shift. You keep your distance. I don't need to go to this place where just me to that person. I'm bringing everyone that I have recently been around, or the location or whatever, the possibility of bringing something to somebody that they, not good. So I think there has been a shift of being more aware of our impact, our personal impact on others. It isn't just about me, what I want to do. And
Well, and
I
that's
think
why,
that's a good thing. And I hope that continues.
yeah, that's why this is working, honestly, this self-quarantine thing,
Yes.
because our compassion about other people, we don't want to hurt other people, whether
No,
it's our grandma or someone else's. We
no.
don't want to put the at-risk people at risk. And so I really appreciate that humanity, that compassion that people are showing.
Yeah. And the realization, it's like, okay, I'm going to go, say, in a vehicle with these two friends somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, you have to realize you're not just with those two people. You're with everyone that they have been around in the last 2 weeks, right?
Right.
And then you go and take it somewhere else, not unknowing. I mean, who would? There's been a
Right.
shift.
It's in my estimation, we have not had this type of situation in our lifetime. And so I look at it and go, we're all having the same experience, millions of us having the same experience, and it's helped us to be very mindful and slow down. And I believe that's what you're expressing, Brenda, is that slowing down and having that just that awareness. I described it to my kids who are in their, well, my son's 28, my daughter's going to be 34. Imagine having glitter on yourself that you don't know you have on yourself, but everybody else maybe can see it. And every place you go and every place you touch, you leave a little bit of your bright, shiny glitter. And in retrospect, you can look behind you and maybe see all the places that you've been in touch. And so it really had my son especially slowing down and realizing that all the places he touched in the house, I mean, this is really not something that he had ever thought of before. And so those of us that have been in healthcare or have been able to process this understand, but those that didn't have the mindfulness to slow down and really process that didn't understand the far-reaching effects. I mean, maybe when we had to go through our AIDS training back, gosh, 20 plus years ago, did we understand the effect of that viral disease and how it spread, certainly far more differently than this virus spreads, but it gave you the multitude of how it can spread exponentially. So I would agree.
All right. How about Shannon or Alyssa? How about your words? Got one yet? Are you referring to?
So mostly for me, it's just stay at home,
Uh-huh.
kind of
Okay.
home order and stay at home order. We're staying at home. So I haven't really put a connotation of medical to it, I guess, at this point.
Well, it doesn't have to be medical. It could be just how you perceive being at home, your freedom or lack thereof, or what that means to you. Because
Or what do you say internally?
Yeah.
What do you say internally? Does it, oh my God, this feels like jail goes in your head? Because really, we are what we think we are. So let's think we're sequestered or some other happier staycation term.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, it hasn't changed a lot for me in that sense. 'Cause
Okay.
I'm
Good.
So I haven't necessarily looked at it negatively. It's very anxiety provoking, but I don't have a negative word for it. So yeah.
That's good. That's good. We don't want you to have one. Don't create
Okay.
a negative word.
Look, I can create one if you'd like.
No.
No.
Oh, positive is good. How about Alyssa? Did you come up with one yet? Or are you still thinking on it?
Oh my gosh, I'm still kind of thinking. And Marie has known me for a while and she's on my Facebook. So the majority of, for instance, what I'm putting out is what I feel, and a lot of it has been positive. From the very beginning, I woke up like at 4 a.m. one day and I made a list of all the projects I wanted to do online or around the house. And I had actually prayed that God would give me an ability. You never know how God will answer, but it's like, God, I'm really behind at home and I really am tired of rushing. And all of a sudden it's like, here's a weird answer to prayer. But yet, like this morning on my Facebook, I had posted that I also deal with chronic fatigue, low thyroid, and some other issues. And so yesterday I was just exhausted, and not just from this, but just how my body can be. And so my perception of the world was framed through the eyes of someone who wasn't feeling herself. And so little things were just slighting me that ordinarily may not have. Or like I had walked at the park, my 6 feet apart, and here's a group of 5 children playing together. Another group of 10 teenagers riding bikes closely together. Like it was spring break and their parents said, just get out of the house and leave me alone, do whatever you want. And I was so irritated. And it was like, oh gosh, is the problem them or me? But
Good question.
anyhow.
But that segues into, what do you miss the most, or what is the negative about this for you? And Maria, I'm not sure how much time we have, so we might want to keep just kind of go through everybody with. I can start. I can say I miss hugs. I really miss hugs, because video just doesn't freaking do it for me. And the 6 feet distance thing might be nice at the grocery store when you don't want someone up your butt anyway while you're trying to check out your groceries. For once, I have time to bag my groceries before the next one. But I really miss physical contact with people. And I'm a introvert. I could be moled up in my house forever and not even care. But I found out I miss physical comfort, which I can't say I actually thought would ever be a problem for me.
I agree. I really miss the opportunities like to go out with people, to have dinner, to get together in groups. You know, that was, especially the first couple weeks, that was kind of like, huh, this feels way different. But I'm adjusting to that. But yeah, getting together physically instead of, you know, email, text, phone, whatever, that's the big miss.
I'm at home with cats, and I had lived with a mom who has since passed away. And so to celebrate church in your bathroom or whatever by yourself online is a weird feeling. Or to try to keep remembering to distance yourself from people, and you're walking down the street and some people look at you like you have the plague and they run. Or my former walking partner from down the street, a neighbor, just looked at me and said, I really want to walk alone. And she scurried off with fear. And I thought, well, that's a weird, we still could say hi to each other from, 10 feet away. It's not like we have to run. Or, it's just seeing some of that has been hard. But again, not everybody's doing that.
Do you think that's going to change your relationship with that friend?
You might have to say that again, Dr. Grobe.
Alyssa, do you think that's going to change your relationship?
Oh, I was kind of debating about that because this is somebody who lives down the street from me, and we were walking together almost every morning for a long time. And, I am really curious what will happen. And I've had some friends who keep bringing that up on Facebook and shoving it in people's face. And I think they need to back off a little bit and kind of let some of it just be, because some of them are just almost promoting this weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think we're going to find out what people do as you move forward, because I know I've talked with Marie privately and some other friends that how long does it take to develop habits? And right now we're in a cycle of habit forming. It's been long enough. And we could very well have some new good and bad habits as a result of this. But I'm really hoping that enough people take initiative in public settings, Facebook groups or whatever, and say, isn't it nice that we can be together again? Or, just some positive promotion as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Shannon? What are you missing or see as a negative?
I think feeling socially awkward. Like you, I'm a hugger, or I'm a handshake. You meet someone, you shake their hand, and that's just been really, really hard for me to not feel like I'm looking rude or ignoring people. That's not my nature. So that has been really difficult. Or, walking outside, you pass someone on the trail, you say good morning. I really have that internal, do I say good morning? Do I not say good morning? Do I look at them? Do I not look at them? I walk into, I had to do a signing for my home this week and never met the person, walked in, and do we bow? Do we shake their hand? And so it was really, really awkward. Really, that awkwardness.
And I would say really, because that was like the first, when we were asked to kind of stay at home or like not, just be mindful, right? Be careful. And people were like doing this elbow or doing the fist bump. And I'm like, okay, well, you're still touching one another. Then they went to the 6 foot rule. And I'm like, okay, here's my personal bubble. I've had people call it their personal dance space. Their, don't mess with my aura, whatever term you guys use is great, but it is, you are absolutely right. It is very awkward because for the socially acceptable thing, even probably in church, is, you know, you shake hands and you express the love and the sign of peace or whatever it is in a church setting. And I wonder really how this is going to change moving forward when we are able to come back together and have more physical touching, embracing, hugging, shaking hands. Will people decide and be okay with deciding, you know what, I'm not feeling my best, I'm not going to shake your hand? And I think that would be a positive, actually.
I agree in the sense that if you're ill, people are going to be way more conscientious about staying home, not going to work, not contacting people. I hope. But I personally, if I'm allowed to hug people, that's the first, it's going to be a full on body hug when I get a chance. And I will make a point of eagerly shaking hands with people I meet and smiling. That's the mask thing.
Smiling.
Oh my God. It's like, I hope it's showing in my eyes because you can't see my freaking face.
Yeah.
And I know people that have actually drawn smiley faces on their mask because it's like all of a sudden you don't see that. It's amazing how much just knowing that someone smiled at you matters to you. Like even just through the cashier checking, you're like nodding your head vigorously. Yeah, good, thumbs up, because you can't say it with a smile.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll just learn a new language in body language. I'm like, maybe I should learn sign language. And I just, yeah, it's not even being able to see the smile is weird.
I had someone who was an information officer from a police department at the Unified Command Center this week who was talking to some friends, and I walked by, and she said, when people have masks on, you can't see their expression. You can't see if they're joking. You can't tell if they're angry. I mean, there's pieces of communication missing.
Yes.
You can't hear them as well because it's muffled. So they have to talk louder and you have to listen more. And, you know, it just
cues, yeah, that you wouldn't normally.
And so I stopped and was listening to Claudia, and I thought, oh, that does make sense. And I had a mask on yesterday when I went on a walk in the park in Linden, and I was the only one. And nobody else had one. So a lot of them were just kind of looking at me like I was an alien. And they were going about life, and I had a mask on, so I must be sick. Not because I was just trying to be respectful.
Well, and that does seem to be a lot of some of these governmental decisions do seem to be creating division, alienation, dividing community in some ways. And I think people have become very inventive on how they are still fostering that community, still connecting with each other. I've heard of people having virtual picnics together, like over the fence, like neighbor to neighbor, and having picnics and you know, just doing it visibly in front of one another rather than in their backyard hiding. You know, people who are doing exercise or dancing, everybody gets on a Zoom like this and they dance and exercise together or share skills. I know a neighborhood that that did a repair workshop virtually, where they said, if you have something to be fixed, we've got, you know, these incredibly skilled people in our neighborhood. Let's talk each other through how to fix something. And so, yeah, trying to avoid that alienation feeling. I will say, Alyssa, as far as the wearing a mask when you're like walking, if you are able to unconsciously keep a distance, like you're going for a walk and you know there's obviously going to be big distance, you shouldn't have to wear a mask that way. But if you're in getting closer quarters or you're walking on sidewalks, that's where the mask is appropriate. And that's probably what people are feeling. But yeah, not being able to see people's expressions or seeing people avoid you, you don't know what's going on in their head. And so it feels very isolating. But with that thought, I want people to remember that I have also heard some bad stories about people judging other people for their mobility, their whatever they're doing, because they didn't bother to ask or didn't know their particular circumstances. For example, a husband wife that were leaving every day from their home, even though everybody else was told to stay home, because they were getting cancer treatment, and they were allowed to do that. But a neighbor keyed their car. They were so upset that they were leaving, didn't ask them, and keyed their car because they were so upset with them. And so, Shannon, you had mentioned concern that people are being nice now, but what's going to happen later?
Mhm.
And that is something that if we consciously hold the positive and we hold the creativity and we hold the positive of what we want our future to look like as an individual, as a community, that we can allay those kinds of things where we can be upfront and honest and help one another, and we can support that even if it's just your street. Then we'll have less and less of that. But if we start isolating ourselves again, and it's easy to do remotely, then we might end up with troubles. And that's partly why Maria and I wanted to talk today, is we want to make sure that people don't feel alone, don't feel like they're going through things by themselves, don't lose hope in humanity and just the global future as well. I have to admit, money is always a worry, and I can't tell you how stress relief I feel knowing that everyone's broke right now. It's like if no one can work, no one can make
That's
money.
true.
I'm like, I'm good.
Well, I miss my schedule because I'm used to seeing clients come and go. I'm used to taking care in person with people, whether it's massage or biofeedback or Skinar or whatever service I can provide to them. One of my takeaways from this is I figured out a little bit more about what I like and I don't like, about myself. I know that I need a schedule. There's some cons. My whole day can just go away if I don't have myself. I will write down in my Google Calendar, right? I make an appointment with myself to go to the pharmacy or go to the bank so that I see how much it's travel time. That's just the way my Virgo mind works. What can I say? But I have made a pros and cons list. I like sleeping in. I really do. I'm getting a full 8 hours sleep. I don't go to bed usually till after 11. And so I am totally willing to sleep till 7:15 or 7:30, and I could still see my first person at 9. So I have also been taking an afternoon nap. It works for Google. They pay people to be creative and take a nap. And so I may keep that in. I may schedule that. And it may work on some days, it may not work. I don't mind the division of labor at home, but a lot of these things have been negotiated. And so some of the relationship rules that we have had that have been more traditional in the past, they're up for renegotiation. And I would encourage that for other people too.
We have Judy back, it looks like. Anybody else want to pipe in about where they want to?
I just wanted to quickly thank everybody for doing this. I know Marie and I have been communicating in the last week or so, just because, again, it was one thing when this was 2 weeks. It's another thing when it's longer. And when a lot of people are still waiting for unemployment, or they're still not sure of different things. Or so many of us have been so busy for so long. And like she said, all of a sudden we're looking in the mirror at ourselves and we're seeing more of ourselves. And sometimes we do or don't like what we're seeing, and we have to face it.
Yeah.
You want to say anything, Judy?
Yes, I guess I could. I feel, first of all, I feel very fortunate that I had just left Washington and came to a sunny climate. So my life, I can't complain about. I get out every single day and take long walks in nice, warm, sunny weather. And I would
Lucky
not be
you.
doing that at all because I can't stand the cold and the nastiness. So I feel like, I landed in heaven. And people are doing distancing, and I don't feel at all offended. As a matter of fact, when I'm walking on the road and I see somebody coming towards me, I make a big circle around them, and I can't imagine that anybody at this time could feel offended. I mean, we're doing the right thing. We're keeping away from each other because we don't know where the other person's been. And so I don't feel psychologically affected by any of the things that you guys are talking about. I think it's okay to distance and not hug and not do anything like that. And maybe, yeah, so that for me is okay. The biggest thing that bothers me, and I guess, is that I worry about people who get sick and it's not about the virus and then they can't get any help because you can't go anywhere. That worries me, that people are not taking care of themselves in other ways, because all they talk about is, distancing. Nobody talks about your immune system. Nobody talks about why some people get sick and why other people don't, which for me would have to do with the fact that, they take care of themselves better. And so that worries me, that people could get ill and then there's nobody to help them. Because nobody, as a matter of fact, my son lives in Canada, and he's treating this virus like a war, because for him, it's like, what if something happens to me and my wife, what's going to happen to my 10-year-old? Who's coming in to take care of the 10-year-old? Nobody. There's no family, there's nothing. So those are the things that concern me, not doing without, or not saying hello, or not hugging, or any of those things. So, I mean, that's where I am anyway, as far as what's going on.
That's a really good topic for maybe our 4 o'clock today, if people are interested, or another session, is who's getting sick and who isn't, or who's susceptible, who isn't. I completely agree with you, Judy, that from the very moment get-go that I was concerned about, what about those people that can't get out, that can't get supplies, or have other health conditions and can't get in the hospital, or are turned away because they're full, or turned away because you're not sick enough, or that's my huge concern about the people in general, my town. And
Well,
how do
other
we
thing,
get help to them?
the other thing is we're so, and not that we shouldn't be, well, I don't know. We have all the health conditions that people have on an everyday basis, but we're hyper focused on this one issue. And you may still need to see your practitioner for your whatever thing, but you can't even get an appointment because of all of the fear.
Right.
And so I'm concerned that people are struggling silently at home because no one calls them back. And I've heard that from, I get this, and maybe Dr. Grobe too, kind of like, you're my last resort. I don't know what to do. Like, you're an ear I can talk to, and you might have a good couple of suggestions. And honestly, it's like, well, your diabetes does need to be addressed, or, and you should be able to call your practitioner and say, this is what I need, and have a virtual session or whatever, if there's that much fear in the clinic. And many people are figuring it out. And I would say Dr. Grobe was a little ahead of the curve in some regards that way, being able to do virtual consults or phone consults before it was in style. So I would encourage that if there are people that that could use help, to have them still call and get help, or have them contact Dr. Grobe and we can discuss immune system support and things like that.
Well, and Marie, you and I are in a unique position in that we can do a lot of that stuff and help people. I have found a huge disconnect between stay at home and go to the ER when you can't breathe. What do you do in between? Or what do you even do to prevent while you're not sick and you're staycationing or whatever? What do you do between that? And that's where people like you and I are going to be the most helpful. When this first started, you and I studied this virus quite a bit
We did.
and
Yeah.
made some treatment plans and ordered in supplements and pharmacy and things that we even posted some lists on for people. And so I have a ton of stuff. So when you're talking about practitioners having to be concerned about seeing a patient or not, or Judy talking about your son creating, this huge barrier, because what if something happens to me? I'm a single mom of a disabled child. So if anything happens to me, what happens to my child? And so I made a plan where people check on me every day. I also make sure that I am armed to the teeth with every remedy known to man or planet Earth that I can use to treat from home, because I'm going to have to do that for myself if I can't even get anywhere to treat or can't leave my daughter alone to treat. So I have lots of options, and I'm making sure I've got all that on hand because of that very reason. And because living alone, it can be scary when you are either by yourself or have a dependent that when you're thinking about your health. So what am I supposed to do? I better be darn healthy. I better exercise. I've been kind of sewing a lot, so no, I haven't been. Taking the dog for a walk. As a side note, what's interesting is I've apparently transferred my wanting to help people to sewing masks, because if I can't see the patients, I might as well make masks.
Protect them.
Protect them in some way. But getting your vitamin D, getting your vitamin C, doing things that put you in the present moment. Get your head out of mainstream media for a while. News, die. It's one of those things. It's like, oh, our state of mind matters, and also feeling confident that I can deal with this. I can take care of it. But I know I'm unique. Not everybody has that skill or that ability or that knowledge, and so we want to share that with people.
Can I jump in here?
Please.
I think the number one thing we can all do to feel better is, you touched on it, but keep mainstream media out of our lives. I mean, I do that on a regular basis anyway, just to feel like a happier, healthier human being. There's so much fear mongering in normal conditions, and this has just gone overboard. And I think as far as my fear in hospitals and such is, I would hate to get an injury, a bone, a serious cut, something like that, where I had to go to the hospital for treatment, because hospitals are generally the number one place to stay away from if you don't want to catch something. So, I mean, that's in the back of my mind too. So, if I'm with my horses or I'm doing, whatever, it's like, think like I normally wouldn't think that way. You know what I'm saying? But it is in the back of my mind. You really don't want to get an injury or something where you have to go to the hospital. Now particularly more so than ever.
I agree, Brenda. I don't want to go to the hospital for any reason whatsoever right now.
No, I don't even want to drive by it.
Yeah. And telehealth is a way, or these educational videos and things are a way to keep people from the ICU, from the hospital, from the doctor's office. Hopefully, if we can do our job or reach enough people.
Yeah.
That is our goal. It doesn't matter what you have underlying. We will help you on everything if you need it.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, like some of the people that are on, like, is it Schedule 4, Class 4, whatever, drugs, that need to physically go to their doctor, to physically get the prescription, to physically take it to the pharmacist, to physically go pick it up. I wonder if they've loosened those requirements at all, so people aren't having, that have some underlying issue, obviously, or they wouldn't be on these medications. So they don't have to physically go in and expose themselves to all the cooties that might be in those situations, yet get their needs met. So I don't know. It was just a thing I thought of a week or so ago. I wonder if people.
That does make, it makes it very difficult for somebody that has to have a prescription that is only written. They may for a short time allow practitioners to fax or something, but I don't have any knowledge.
I haven't received any notification of
Yeah,
relaxing those
because a lot
restrictions.
of the people, they're cancer patients, and it's drug medications, and they or someone has to physically, generally, go do all of those things physically.
Correct.
And so it's like, I certainly hope that people are making allowances for things like that.
And there may be many, some of the pharmacies have put in drive-throughs, which has been great. Our banks here, Brenda, you can't go to the bank, you can only drive through. And they're doing their due diligence of wiping things down. You can see the tellers on the inside, taking their time to do due diligence. So it really has changed the how we go through procedures, I will say, and everyday life. And what are we going to keep from this? I personally like being able to have interactions with people, but I'm a people person. And so I would choose most of the time to go into the pharmacy rather than the drive-through, but not when I'm ill. That doesn't happen very often, but not when I'm ill. But I think this is a great opportunity for us to choose how we live the rest of our lives, and discovering, because we're in our own face, what do we like about ourselves and what would we like to change. Part of what I've been learning is I really like learning more about remedies and plants that I can have at home that are hugely medicinal, and maybe I won't need to go to the doctor for any of those things. Maybe I can maintain a very healthy lifestyle, so that I don't have to make those choices. Certainly if I get a bad cut and need stitches, I'll have to make a different choice. But yeah.
Correct. And another thing, maybe this would be for a future discussion, but if, we could maybe touch on, there's so much talk that this is going to be a reoccurring virus every fall, like the flu or whatever, yet I think SARS-1 is back, whatever.
Grocery store.
We definitely could have a conversation about those things. I don't know about everybody else, but you could literally get on the news and hear completely conflicting stories in the same minute, same 5 minutes, 2 different channels, 2 different hosts, same people, different times a day. And, I say specifically mainstream because they're the ones that everybody turns on their TV and watches, Fox News, CNN, whatever, for the most part. But even the alternative types of news, a lot of that is like, I can't tell you my inbox on my email. Everything is COVID.
Yeah,
I just want to shoot my computer.
Yeah. So I don't, from a healthcare perspective, it'd be interesting to hear from you guys.
I'm happy to start off.
You believe that this is going to be like, oh, it's going to be, it's going to be next fall. They expect the same thing. I don't know that that's the case. It hasn't been the case with, like I said, SARS-1, and you know what I mean? So I just kind of wonder how much of it is fear mongering and taking the place of common sense.
I'm going to say that's a loaded answer because there are so many layers to that. But I'm going to say my inclination is that we're not going to see a repeat of this particular illness.
No, because it's a virus, and viruses innately, they change. Or
Correct.
you would only get the cold once. You would only have the flu once. But no, and that's why vaccines don't work. So, yeah.
Our best response is, and this is what the hospitals are intending in the first place, is they're just trying to make it so that they're not drowning and everybody ill all at one time. It is best for the population that we all get exposed and infected, because the higher, 80% or higher, is going to be fine. They can treat the more severe cases, but they need to not have to treat them all at once.
Correct.
So your survivability goes up when the hospitals aren't overwhelmed with the severely ill. Everybody else that gets exposed will have just a general cold. So two things go on, is that, okay, we've isolated ourselves, but we've also prevented it from spreading a bit. So when we are allowed back out and we go back into the population, are we going to start it all over again? Possible. I will say the expectations of it improving over spring and summer is simply because UV light, i.e. the sun, kills viruses. You raise your vitamin D level naturally by being out in the sun, and it will help fight viruses or any infections for that matter. Most of the time, people do not get sick in summer. Most of the time, people get sick in spring and fall in the transitions. Those who have lower or poorer immune systems will be sick maybe more than once in winter. And those who are really in bad shape will often get sick in summer. Usually you don't get sick in summer. So we do expect the general population is just going to be fine for the summer. In the winter, the possibility of those, as we transition, our diet changes, our sunlight changes, our activity changes, a lot of things change in that seasonal, besides the fact that it's cold and wet, that will have issues in the fall, but it may not be this. It's very likely it's some altered version. And the thing that people have to remember, especially coronaviruses, is that they do mutate. They're notorious for mutating rapidly, and they can mutate within the same family of exposure. They can mutate rapidly in a community. And so by the time we have fall, even if it came from this one, viruses don't want to kill their host. If they kill their host, then they're out of their own life sustenance. So they adapt so that they make you sick, but they don't kill you anymore. So it's highly likely to be a less virulent or less damaging virus in the future. However, every year, those who are susceptible to the flu will always be susceptible to the flu, even if it's a milder version of what we're dealing with right now. So if you have chronic inflammation, if you have diabetes, if you have cardiovascular disease, even some medications like living on ibuprofen or steroids, like for your asthma, it's not the asthma that's the problem, it's the steroids for the asthma that's the problem. So those kinds of things are going to make you more susceptible, as they always make you more susceptible. And that's why we need to use our staycation as a time to improve our health. And our summer, whether we're in or out, we need to get sunlight. We need to eat well. We must eat well. This is our make it or break it time for that, honestly. We got away with it for a long time, and we have it in our face right now. Can't get away with that anymore. We just can't. So that's my lecture. Sorry.
Wonderful. Well, if This has been a really great hour. We're a little over. So thank you for sticking with us. And we were talking about maybe getting together this afternoon at 4 o'clock Pacific time to have a further discussion. And I don't know if you have an idea of what the topic will be, but
Anybody have something they want to know more about that you can pick our brains for?
You kind of touched on it. How worried do we need to be as far, individually? I guess that would, you started to say, how serious is this on an individual level?
Very,
The doctor's office. I
very.
still go into the doctor's office. Over here, the doctors are giving you the choice. Do you want to come or would you like to do a virtual visit? So to me, how serious is this? Does that kind of make sense? Because I don't know if people are really taking it serious or if the news is just hyping it, or is this really not lethal? I mean, not that it's not lethal, but for the everyday population, what we're doing. If I go to the grocery store, am I going to die tomorrow? That's extreme, but and then I feel like some people just don't think it's very serious and other people think it is serious. So who's right? I would love to know
The shorter answer is that this virus is going to find the weak link in your health. And so if you are unhealthy for medications, electronics, EMFs do matter. If you're unhealthy for habits, drinking sodas, eating sugar, it's going to find those weak links. So your susceptibility as far as catching it or your manifestation of the disease itself will be dependent on those things. That's the short answer.
As I say,
happy
to
go in much more detail because I'm not trying to leave people in fear. It's totally workable, fixable, preventable, in my opinion. But I want to say that if we go around like we were before, and a lot of people here eat very healthy, so you're actually not the population I'm worried about. But the average person may still have some difficulties and should avoid that. So like when the doctor gives you a choice, as I am doing, I'm giving people a choice. I also have the office location set up that I can see people and I can control the contact, person to person, body contact, etc. The thing I can't control is like when I do acupuncture, I can't check the pulse kind of thing. So, but I can do that. So I'm okay with it. I feel confidence in treating, in taking care and making sure it's not passed on. Not everybody's confident. So I even give them a choice if they want me to wear a mask the whole time or if they feel confident that our 6 feet is enough.
But then that to me is saying that it's really not that big a deal.
For most people, it's not.
The mixed messages.
For most people, it's not.
Well, I think that this virus is different in the sense that you can have it, you can carry it, and you can not show symptoms and not even know it and pass it on to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And the incubation period of this one is so much longer, like the common flu. You'll know like within 3 days, you're going to start feeling yucky. Right? So
and you can trace where it came from because of that usually.
You will transfer it to less people in that, because this can be like 2 weeks before you even start showing symptoms if you're going to show them. And so look at all the people you can transfer it to within that time period. That is, to me, is the biggest difference of this virus versus a lot of the other viruses out there.
And I would agree. Could think of it like Marie's analogy earlier with the glitter. Exactly. It's one of those things that the problem with this, and this is partly why it's so scary to people, is because it's invisible. You have no idea where it came from. It's not like you can say, oh, I was exposed to somebody coughing 3 days ago, because I can track in a very short, finite distance or contact where it came from. And this could be, the gas station gas handle kind of thing. uh,
And
that,
that's where the social distancing and thinking about that when you see somebody, you're not just seeing that person, that you're bringing everybody you've been around for the past 2 weeks to that person, potentially.
But keeping in mind that your best defense is warm water and soap.
yes.
Correct.
And that, my hands will show you. I am not a huge fan of hand sanitizer. It's 70% effective.
Yeah.
In my car, I have a tiny little hand sanitizer. I have a bigger, already pre-mixed soap and water, because when I go out to my car, it's messier, but I am soap and water lathering, drying my hands. Everybody else is doing hand sanitizer. I just do what works for me.
Well,
So
this
in
virus,
your-
viruses in general, and this one in particular, they need oil in order to survive. And so soap is what cuts oil better than alcohol.
I
yes.
said it better myself.
So in response to Shannon, and maybe at 4:00, this is something we could touch on, is how to stay out of fear and how to do what's best. And that may be in general. And then the more specific would be, here's my situation. Let me set up a 30-minute consult with Dr. Grobe so that you have a very specific understanding of what you as an individual need. Because I think in general, we can talk about boosting immune and all that kind of thing, but it does somewhat depend on, do you have X condition like autoimmune or diabetes, or, are you pro-inflammatory? All these kinds of things do matter. And so then understanding what nutrients you can get from your own garden, if you should have one, lucky person you are, because I don't have that ability to grow here in the dark cedar trees. So all these things do matter for you as an individual, and that feels very empowering. Makes sense?
Yes.
So yeah, we can definitely go over more details of the susceptibility and how to mitigate that. At this point, I'm in agreement, social distancing, stay at home. If you don't need to go out, you just reduce your exposure to potential problems just doing that. For necessity reasons, there's still needs for a lot of people to still, get groceries and stuff. But if you can have other people do it and drop it off at your door, whatever. The thing, and we'll talk about that later, because I could go off on like deliveries and that kind of stuff. But that's why Marie and I are doing this, is we're trying to answer those questions. We're trying to not only hear what people are going through and support that, but also give some answers that we can alleviate for you a lot of this stuff, because it's important that all our communities, no matter where we're staying, is really important, that can be passed on and expanded on an individual and a community basis.
And it's so helpful to us to get a firsthand understanding of what's going on in different parts of our own state and across the country. So having Judy and Brenda here from Florida are you in Florida as well, Brenda?
Brenda's here.
Oh, Brenda's here.
Yeah, Judy's sister.
Judy's sister.
Also in
yeah.
Florida. Yeah.
So, I really appreciate the perspective from everyone, because we're all, even though we're all in this together, we're all having a different experience with the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
Global and individual simultaneously.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, unique to our generation. Our generation never went through anything like this ever before.
I think even breaking it down, sort of, Marie, what you just said. So for instance, I work with someone who's live with someone who's an essential worker. He goes off to work every day. He comes home every day. It's no big deal when he's at work. It's like, oh, they're essential. So they really they follow the rules, but not really. And that's what I'm thinking. So I sit here at home and I'm doing everything. And then he goes off to work and they're, we're not, we're essential. So some reason that in their mind makes them immune. So that's sort of where I was coming from.
That's
Sure.
that's a good
Groups.
description. It makes them immune in their head. Yeah, that's interesting.
So just a,
Well, and hopefully they're out working in the sunlight, which is, there's lots of natural airflow and all, that's kind of the idea, I think, was essential, yes, but also outdoor, not because there are less people they come in contact with, the chances of them bringing it home. I would be a little more concerned about you if you were living with someone that was an essential worker in a hospital or a clinic
Or a grocery store.
or a grocery store.
Mhm.
We've had that discussion. My husband actually had a couple of opportunities and he said he politely declined because he would have been put in the front lines, and thankfully his credentials had expired. So he didn't have to go, but he would have chosen not to go.
Emergency management tried to call up all their volunteer emergency response teams, and I would have been a good fit for that. But I'm like, if something happens to me, what happens to my daughter? I can't. And so I had to refuse for that reason, even though clinically I can still see patients with modification, but I can control the environment. I can control the equipment. I can control the sterilization. I can control who I see, whereas I couldn't in emergency response. And I feel terrible because the other me, the non-mom me, would have been fine with that, but not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I offered to teach emotional stress release to Unified Command here locally, and they were not willing to have it be recorded and play at their leisure. They wanted me to physically come to Unified Command, and so I politely declined.
Really?
Those are the folks
Unified
that
Command wanted you in person? That's kind of bizarre.
I declined.
Okay.
There is a
All right.
rule
So
here.
we probably need to sign off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you guys want a 4 o'clock today, or do you want a different time? Or because we can certainly go more into this risk and treatment issue, much more detail. What do you guys think, or what do you ladies think? I apologize for the guys word.
I think it would be maybe beneficial to have one like once a week or something.
Okay. Is this a good day and time?
I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. Unless it's the grocery store.
All right. Well, we could definitely keep in touch with you guys and let you know we're going to do another. Some of them might be live, some of them might be recordings, but we will definitely let you know when something's posted. So we will do that. We're going to try and do, different audiences for the questions and answers, just to give people a variety of
Yeah,
things.
please share.
But yes, please share things, or email us or text us, because you all know us very well, and we can address those things in some format for sure.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any last comments, Marie, or?
No, I just
Shannon or
appreciate
Judy?
everybody taking their time out of their busy day to join us, because I know we're all either have a schedule, don't have a schedule, are avoiding something, or really do have something to do. So taking time and putting us into a slot in your day is really very wonderful.
Maybe
So
we could send some questions in ahead of time and then give you time to answer, to write them down and answer them the next.
That would be wonderful, Judy. Thank you.
And just a comment for those of you here on Zoom, you might see a little chat bubble down in the bar. of your screen, of your video screen, there's a little chat button. And you can put questions in that while we're doing our conversation here. There you go. See, Marie just put hello. So in future, you can put things in there and one or the other of us can address that for questions live. I'm sorry, I should have said something earlier. I just learned about it myself. So we can do that as well as we're moving forward. But I like the live question thing. And you know, there I am again. Oh,
Well, there you are.
I'll just
You
show
look
you,
lovely.
I'll show you the pig I'm painting.
gosh, it's pig. When is it gonna fly?
Well, somebody gave me a flamingo that was all